Welcome back to Love Letters Live, where we, three girls in our 20s, sit down with married women to hear about how they found their person. I'm Annie here with Kate and Elizabeth, and today's guest is extra special, Mama Boz. Her story provides that sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the happiest endings. Mama Bosley, we're so excited to have you here today. So,
I'm so excited.
you're our wonderful co-host Kate's mom. So before we dive into your love story, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do on a day-to-day basis?
Okay, well, I'm a mom of three kids, a retired nurse, and I'm a stay-at-home dog mom now. And I have a border collie named Lily, who's a therapy dog. And I go out with her to elementary schools and a library, and kids read to her to overcome their fear of reading and to increase their skills for reading. And I'm on tennis teams, and I'm just kind of enjoying life now.
Oh, that's wonderful. What made you choose to get into the therapy service dog space? Not a lot of people are in that. And I'm a big dog lover myself. We all are. So can you tell us a little bit more
Well,
about that?
yeah, well, being a retired nurse, and then the kids were off to college and grown, and I kind of wanted to give back and do something related to my nursing degree. So I decided that I noticed that my dog was super loving and just loved people, wants to like hug everybody's leg and super docile. So I decided to get her trained to be a therapy dog. And in combination with my nursing degree, I thought it would be really neat to go out in the community and help people. So I've been to brain injured facilities where adults have a brain injured program, and I'd walk around with the dog. And I've been to nursing homes with Alzheimer's patients, and it's just wonderful. Makes me feel wonderful to see people getting love and giving love. And it's amazing what dogs can do to give back to people.
Before you met your current husband, Steve, you're engaged to someone else, also named Steve. So that's a coincidence.
Yes.
Tell us what that
Yes.
relationship was like.
Well, I was in nursing school, and there was this Steve that lived in my apartment complex on the floor above me. And he kept hanging out with my roommates and I. And as time went on, we literally hung out for an entire year. And then we started doing stuff, just this guy and I, just doing stuff alone all the time. He would have me over and cook me dinner. He would say, "Hey, do you want to go to a concert?" He would say, "Hey, you want to go out for a beer?" And we would go everywhere together. And of course, I started to like this guy. And I was thinking he must like me because he hangs out with me 24/7, and I don't see him with any other girls or anything. So literally after a year of hanging out, I said to him, hey, should we try dating? And it was just always me sort of chasing him from that day on.
No, that's really interesting. I think that's really relatable. Like for me, I have a very determined attitude. So when I start having feelings for guys, I feel like I have to chase them and be like, okay, like I have to get them to like me. And it almost becomes
Yep.
a mission or like a game to get them to like me when
Yep.
in reality,
Yep.
it's meant to be that they don't really like me.
Right. And in our situation, I think we loved each other as friends. And like I said, we did everything together as friends. And I think he would have just gone along forever, just doing everything together and being friends. I mean, but I wanted more because I really liked the guy. And I felt like he liked me because he was with me 24/7. And I thought, I don't really believe in platonic relationships. If a guy's going to hang out with a girl all the time, he must like me, right? And then we did start dating. He agreed. He's like, yeah, let's start dating. And I did stuff with his family and traveled with his family. And then I became a nurse. And I was like thinking, okay, shouldn't we have the next step here? So yeah, after 5 years of dating, I said to him, I said, okay, we've been dating 5 years now. What's the next step? Let's either shit or get off the pot here. I had this conversation with him, and he kind of said, okay, well, let me think. And so a couple of months later, he comes up with a ring, and it's Valentine's Day. And he's like, oh, he said, I forgot to get you a Valentine's Day present. Let's go get some Chinese takeout, and we can go to Walgreens and get you a stuffed animal. And I was like in my head going, what in the heck? This is not love. So we go over and get Chinese takeout. We get a stuffed animal. We come back, and he then proposes to me. He gives me a engagement ring, opens the box, doesn't kneel down on a knee, doesn't even give me like a story of I want to spend the rest of my life with you, just opens the box and says, here. And I said, well, aren't you going to ask me? And then my heart knew right there, this is not the right person, because the right person makes you feel like they want to be with you, that you feel like that's your soulmate. And I did not feel this the entire 5 years. I didn't feel this. I always felt like I was the one that liked him more. I was the one chasing, and even down to engagement, I'm the one pursuing that. And then finally, after he gives me the ring, even 3 months go by. And I said, well, it's been 3 months since the engagement. Should we plan the wedding? And he's like, I give you a ring and now you want to plan the wedding so soon? And that's when I knew. And I said, that's it. I'm done. And I literally called a moving truck and my parents and moved everything out, moved in with another nurse, and I never looked back, never had any closure. I just knew it wasn't right. Hardest thing I've done. I was devastated, depressed. He was too, but it was like the best thing I've ever done because it was not the right person. It was not my soulmate.
No, and like good for you because when you like getting engaged should be the happiest one of the happiest moments in your life. And the
Yeah.
fact that he took that first engagement away from you is horrible. So leaving
Yep.
a long-term relationship, especially after this kind of failed engagement that was bad on his part, it does take a lot of strength. But how did you find the courage to do that?
After we kind of compared notes as to what we wanted in our future, that's when it hit me. He wanted to be career oriented and not really have kids and travel the world. And I wanted to have a family. I'd grown up in a traditional home. I wanted to be a stay at home mom. I wanted to have a family. Yes, I had a nursing career, but I wanted to give it up once I had kids to take care of my kids. And he didn't want that. He wanted this like big, he wanted to live in Manhattan in the city and have this big job. And that's what he went on to do. And he ended up getting divorced. He went on to Manhattan and he's actually very, very wealthy. He's a big name for Atari and he's like in cybersecurities. And yeah, I actually stalked him last night after bringing all of this up to see what he was doing. And he's got quite a resume and he makes lots of money and he ended up getting divorced, has one kid. I don't think he even sees his kid. And that's not the life that I wanted. And he ended up doing that type of life where he's alone and he's married to his job and with nobody. And that's I figured that would be what it would be like if I was with him. He would just be married to his job, and that is not what I wanted. So as hard as it was better to do it then than get married and be divorced. That's what I said in my head. I was like, it's better to do it now than be divorced because that's even harder.
I agree.
So how did
So
that experience, I guess, with that all shape your view on love and like relationships for, I guess, your future?
Right. So I knew I knew what it felt like for it to not be right. I was like, this is not how it should feel. And the only way I knew was when I met the right person and all the bells and whistles went off in my head and the butterflies and the feeling of, I felt like I was floating on cloud nine. I felt like a princess, a queen of the world. I felt beautiful. I felt smart. I felt loved. I felt wanted. And it was a completely different feeling. And I never had to question any kind of, anything, any truths about anything the person said. It was just immediate, love. And it was completely different feeling.
So not long after you met another Steve, which is my dad,
Mm-hmm.
how did that
Mm-hmm.
happen? Can you tell that story?
Well, we had met, so we had a group of mutual friends. And after I had broken up with my previous Steve, you kind of lose your friend group. And I met these mutual friends and we all decided to join this MIT Museum of Young Affiliates, which was a place where young professionals could meet people and have parties in a professional atmosphere, not the bar scene. So I ended up joining with a couple of girls. I'm going to call this girl Allie. I ended up going to this MIT Museum to try to meet people with this girl Allie. Well, we go to some of the parties at the museum and some of the events, and this girl Allie points to this guy across the room and says, "Hey, that's Steve. That's my ex-boyfriend. I broke up with him like a year ago, but he's such a nice guy and I would love to have him, like, I'd try again. Like, I think we could work it out now." And she's like, "Will you go ask him what he's doing and if he'd still be interested in going out with me?" So of course I trot over to this Steve, and not thinking anything. And I, talked to him and I was like, "Hey, I'm here with your ex-girlfriend, Allie. And, she said that she would love to talk to you again. And he was like, oh my gosh, no, that chapter's closed. She's a bitch and I will never get back with her. She broke up with me and that's over. It's been over for a long time. And then, and he's like, would you go out with me? And I was like, of course not. No way. And I didn't know Allie that well. We had just met, briefly through, like I said, mutual friends, and we were joining the museum together to meet people. I didn't know her that well. And, but, again, I was like, no way, I would not do that. Of course not. So, Allie goes back. She's going to law school. She goes back to school, and I'm still going to this museum to some events. And I keep running into the Steve guy at these events, and I run into him around town. And eventually, he's like, "Come on, just give me one date." And I was like, "No, I can't." And he kept persisting. And then eventually, I gave in. I was like, "Okay." And I kind of liked him. I kind of, after he kept persisting, I was like, "I kind of like it because he's being persistent." Well, I go out on one date and of course sparks fly. And I just knew. I was like, this is what it feels like. And sparks were flying. We both had big smiles. We both had so much in common. We both wanted the same things in life. We wanted family. We wanted, he wanted a mom that would stay home with her kids. And that's what I wanted. And so we had all this that aligned, the stars aligned for us. And we kept every date that we went out on, just got better and better. And like a year later, we were married. So,
oh my gosh. So let's get to the fun stuff. So obviously you found your dream man when you weren't looking for him. That's how it always happens. Right. You got the butterflies. Yeah. You heard the bells. I always tell my girlfriends, when you hear the bells ringing in your head. So how long were you guys dating? And tell us a little bit about the proposal story.
So we were dating for about a little under a year, but we knew right away. I mean, we were just like, oh my gosh, we just were so in love so quickly. And then, 3 months in, we talked about, you're the one, we're definitely getting married, and saying, I love you 3 months in. So then a year goes by and he wants me to meet his family. And so we go to Lake Powell, Utah, which is a huge lake in the middle of nowhere. And he's like, you got to meet my family. We're going to go on this houseboat. And I was so nervous, on a boat with his entire family. And I had no idea anything. But one night he's like, let's go. So when you're in the middle of Lake Powell, you're on a houseboat, but you have a little motorboat to the side that you can scoot around on. He's like, let's take the motorboat out and watch the sunset. So I was like, okay, that sounds fun. I had no idea. And he takes me to the sunset and we're watching. And then he gets down on one knee like it should be. And he says this long story of how, he wants to spend the rest of his life with me. He's madly in love with me. And that's how it should be. Like the person is heartfelt and really wants to be with you and tells you how he feels. And there's no question. And of course, a million times I said yes right away. And I was so excited. And so he did it all the right way. And then, of course, he popped open a bottle of Dom Perignon. Woo-hoo. He had 2 glasses. He had champagne glasses engraved. They were silver glasses, and they had engraved on them. One of them said together forever, and the other glass said forever together. And we entwined our arms, and we each sipped each other's glass with our arms entwined and toasted to that. And to this day, we still have those glasses and we still have that bottle. It's empty, of course, but and it was just a wonderful moment. The sunset, and we just knew we were the right people for each other. And to this day, the garage door opens when he comes home from work, and I get butterflies and excited that he's home from work. It's that's when you know it's the right person, when you've been married. I've been married 28 years, but I still get excited when he comes home from work, or when he's been gone for a work trip. I'm excited when he comes home, and always want to be with him and do things with him and feel safe with him and loved by him, all the things.
Aww.
So that's how it should feel.
No, and do you think now that after all your 3 kids, Kate's in college, about to graduate, we can talk about it, and then you have 2 older kids, do you think that your marriage got more exciting after they left the nest?
Yes, I think that we kind of created a different relationship after that. It's kind of, when you're bringing up kids, it's chaotic. You don't really have as much time for each other. But then once the kids are gone, you realize you look at each other and it's silence at the dinner table, and you're like, this is who I'm going to grow old with. And you should be growing old with someone that respects you and that you respect, and that loves you and is going to take care of you and protect you and be there for you. And I feel that, and he feels that. And, we sat there and we actually enjoyed our time together. And it's just it was different type of relationship, because we would have our little routine, and then once the kids came back home, we're like, wait, they're ruining our routine. We're kind of liking our watching our Netflix and our dinner together, and but yeah, I mean, it's a different type of exciting relationship, and now we want to like travel the world, and my husband will retire, and we'll get more time together. But yeah, we really enjoy being together, and that's key. If you don't enjoy being together and you're not excited to be with each other and see each other, and you can't trust each other, and you don't say respectful things to each other, that's not going to make a good relationship. Because once you say something, you can't take it back. So you got to remember respect, and we have that. Not always, but we do. It's not always perfect. I mean, you have ups and downs in life, but for the most part, if there is ever something that's disrespectful, you go back and say, hey, I was having a moment, and you talk about it. Communication. And, we've learned that too over time. It gets, but you learn how to evolve over time. It's not always perfect in the beginning.
So I have to ask, ever since you brought it up, how did you tell Allie that you were going out with Steve?
So the funny thing is, I did run into my ex, Steve, for the first time after all of that breakup. We never saw each other, never had a closure. And I went to a TJ Maxx, and there he was. And I like stopped in my tracks. My heart dropped, and I was like, oh my God. And he just hugged me, and I was loving it because I had lost like 15 pounds. I was like in shape, and I was like tan, and I was like already in love with Steve, my husband now. Yeah. And I told him that I'm like all good now. Like I'm probably going to get married soon. After I told him what my update on life was, that I was dating this guy, Steve, and that we were probably going to get married, I believe he went back and told Allie, our mutual friend. And then Allie, she, tried to get me fired at my nursing job. She was in law school, and she was studying on, she was so upset of the fact that we started dating after she had broken up with him like years before, but she was so upset. She tried to get me fired from being a nurse, and she knew how because she was in law school. So she's like, let me see if I can accuse her of something. So she wrote a fake letter to my job where I was a nurse and said that I had breached confidentiality of a patient while in a bar, which is something you get fired for as a nurse. You can't, everything's confidential when you're a nurse. You can't do that. But she made up a story, and she made 10 copies of this letter and sent it to all the doctors I worked with and tried to get me fired. But anyway, it turned out that they realized it was a false letter, and they felt bad that she had done that to me, and it was all exonerated. But that's what the length she went to. And even she went on like 2 years later, after we were married and had kids, she wrote him a letter at his work and said, let's have lunch. And she just, and I said to my husband, if you ever find my body somewhere, it's definitely her. But she's left us alone. So that's the story.
Well, that's good. I just had to ask. I didn't know there was that much tea, but that's great for the pod.
She's got all the tea.
That is what happened. And she never did call me. I never did tell her, because honestly, we were only friends for like a month. We were just it was a group of us that joined the museum because none of us had boyfriends, and we all knew each other briefly. And we're like, we kind of all like met at a party, and we're like, let's go join the museum together. So we really it wasn't a deep relationship with her. And she had broken up with my current Steve, like literally 2 years before. So it was like, what?
That's crazy. No, we're Team Mama Boz all the way.
Yeah, I am too.
Thank you.
Yeah, without that, no Kate. There'd be no Love Letters Live.
I wouldn't exist.
I mean, you can't stop love. You got to follow your heart.
You can't.
Can't prevent love and sparks. And it just was sparks for us. And, you can't help that. They weren't right for each other. My ex, Steve, and I weren't right for each other, but then we met and we were right for each other. We had the same mindset of what we wanted out of life, and that is key.
For those afraid to leave a relationship where they are comfortable, what advice would you give?
If you're comfortable in a relationship, that's, to me, not enough. There need to be so many different factors, and you should never settle. That is my biggest advice. Never settle. You will find someone out there that you don't need to settle for, that appreciates all of you and respects you and wants to give you love and wants to make you their princess or queen and wants to give you a wonderful life. So don't settle because you won't be happy, and life is too short to not be happy. So you cannot settle. Love is out there. if you're confused and if that person is not giving you the feedback that you need and you feel like, is this going to work? Is there a future? Then that's your answer. If you get no answer, for instance, when I said to my ex-boyfriend, are we going to make a date? And he looked at me and said, what do you mean make a date? That was my answer. And I knew that I had to leave him because if he really loved me and wanted to be with me forever, it wasn't even it would be like, whenever you want, dear, I can't wait to marry you. Instead, it was like annoyance. And there's it's very simple. If you don't get the love and respect and the feelings that you need, there is your answer. It's not the right person. You will know when it's right. You will feel it in your heart. You'll feel it in your gut. And it'll be mutual love. And if it's not mutual, it's not the right person. And it is out there.
Right.
Period.
Period. P. And
even though I have a double chin, he still loves me. Period.
I'm sure you don't.
As he should. And for those still searching that might feel hopeless, what's your best advice on love and timing?
It does have to be the right time. And sometimes it comes up out of nowhere, like it did for me. I think it happens when you least expect it. I think if you are trying too hard and you're acting desperate, it doesn't happen like that. I think the girls that do act desperate and are with a bunch of guys that are meaningless and have a lot of like meaningless hookups, I think that's bad and that does not work out. And those are not guys that want to be with you for the long haul. But it is worth the wait when you find the right person.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I think going back to it, like, you just know when you know. I know it sounds like cliche, but you do hear the bells and you've found an amazing person. You've raised, I'm sure your sons are as amazing as Kate. So
yes, we've taught them to be, Kate should not settle for anything but respectful treatment. And the boys, need to be respectful of their significant others and not settling for less. Never settle for less because we're better than that. You have to love yourself too and know that you're better. You don't deserve not to be loved, and it's out there.
So for people who want to get to know you more, where can people find you?
Give your TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah.
They can find me on TikTok or Instagram. On TikTok, I'm Mama. What am I?
Mama Juju on that.
Juju on the beat.
Mama Juju.
Mama Juju on that beat. And I'll try to do more TikToks. I'll try to give more motherly advice on my TikToks. But that and Instagram, I don't even know my Instagram name.
It's probably just your name, Julie Bosley.
Yeah, Julie_Bosley. Or give me a call, 704.
No, don't get your number.
451-LOVE.
Yeah.
But everyone go
704.
follow her TikTok. She has the best TikTok. She's so funny.
I know. We love
And I will
her.
give you some more love advice on my TikTok coming
Just
soon.
DM her. DM her to be her friend.
DM me any questions. I need friends. I have a great husband, but no friends.
Please, that's not true.
Oh my God. Thank you again, Mama Boz, for joining us. And to everyone listening, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. We can't wait to share more love stories with you, and stay tuned for next week. We love you.